recommendation, we are asking that recommendation 3E be replaced with that the council consults and engages with community groups that have an interest in the restoration of to prepare an agreed restoration and management plan for the spur, but including the adjacent unformed road. So I'll just go on to that bit. Jumping back to the first page, paragraph 4, the spur land has a total area of 35.1407 hectares. It does. If you look at the two parcels, that's exactly right. But right next to them is an unformed road. It's the continuation of Kiln Street that was never formed. And but it is owned by Upper City Council. It has bits of bush and it has a few pines. It makes sense to join that in with the spur 2 parcels of land. And in fact, we submitted that to the hearing on variation 1 of Plan Change 49. I don't know what the commissioners will think about it, but here I am now saying it to you. That really, whatever happens to the spur should include the unformed land. Oh, right, okay. And so hence that is recommendation 1. So my first change is that recommendation 3B be altered to add in and the adjacent unformed road, brackets extension of Kiln Street. So I'm asking that you make those 2 changes. The rest of my comments on the second page about some misunderstandings. There is no Plan Change 49A. There's talk about minimising development of land for housing. There's no housing. That's gone. And there are a few other things that I've supported. Thank you.
Questions, Councillor Carey?
Thanks, Chair. Just a question you said about the Kiln Street extension, which is just a narrow piece there. Any thoughts on the remainder of the trees, you know, above that, Pine Sylvan Way?
Well, indeed, because Upper City Council owns another piece of land there, which is sort of horseshoe shaped, which is the Sylvan Way stream, for want of a better term. I don't know what its official name is, but that's right. For a moment, I thought you were referring to the Guildford Timber Company land, but no, not that land. Yes, and I think there are 1 or 2 wild pines in that area too. So yes, it should all be treated as one unit, because it is actually continuous. If you can walk from the spur across the unformed land and then onto the Sylvan Reserve, I guess it's called.
No one else? Yes, Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So ultimately, your goal is to remove all pine from that land the council owns, including the 3 sites and the roadway and any wildland.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We hope you will stay around for a little while.
Thank you.
And next, Mary Beth, do we have Caroline or
no?
No.
She said she might not be able to attend and the request because
Yeah, so Mary Beth has submitted some notes and we are going to table those on her behalf. And our next speaker is Mr. Rudolph Ross, who's going to talk to the director's report on PC 50.
Hello everyone, I'm Rudolf Vos. I live at Mangarova Valley Road at the start of it. And I want to talk a little bit about Plan Change 50 to make you all aware of what an impact the latest version of the rural version of PC 50 has on our community. So from 2019 to 2022, 3 years in a row, the council indicated the same rural settlement and rural precinct zones in multiple draft documents, fact sheets, online maps, information and public meetings. And at that time, the public consultation and information of the planning department were excellent. The council wanted that rural version, and it was the right thing to do, and the community in general recognized that and supported it. It was a good thing. The main reasons behind these proposed rural settlement zones were the serious housing crisis and the city's rapid growth and the need for more housing. And everybody understood this, and this has not changed. The proposed rural settlement zones provided well thought through options to allow for more housing and were small enough to preserve the look and feel of the valleys. They provided the lifestyle block owners in the indicated settlement areas with the option to sell their unused surplus land that is not viable for rural production anyway and is basically only a burden to maintain. In 2021, when engagement of the council with the public was still good, there was some talk about some new legislation coming, and it's called the NPS-HPL, the National Policy Statement of Highly Productive Lands. But council planners told us they did not anticipate it to have a major impact on PC50 rural. So eagerly awaiting the release of the final report of the final proposal, we anticipated only minor changes. Then PC50 rural was put on hold while PC50 for the city was being completed under urgency and released in August 22. And then after asking the planning department, we were informed that the work on PC rural was started up again with a target for release in early 2023. After repeated delays, accompanied by deafening silence on content, the 2023 rural version was released in October 2023, so it was quite delayed. Without any warning, there were massive, unbelievable changes, both in the content and in the document style. All the earlier proposed settlement zones were suddenly all gone without any public consultation. Nothing. We heard nothing of the council. And this document was literally unrecognizable from the previous version. I was literally sick for days when I found out about these unbelievable monumental changes. The document was unrecognizable from the previous drafts. It was written by somebody who simply threw all the previous versions away in the bin and started over, writing for months, driven by a completely different vision. And that's an important word for councils like you, that vision. Reusing a copy of the old document from a different council. That's how it felt. Hidden away in a dark room without contact with anyone. It felt very disrespectful to the residents, and it gives the impression of council forcing new rulings, regardless of opinion and feedback. And soon I found out that I was not the only one feeling betrayed and treated badly here. Several of my neighbors contacted me and they all had the same angry and terrible feelings. So this was quite serious. We all had put our future plans on hold for this, and we were ready for action, anticipating after 4 long years to finally being able to move forward and prepare future plans. Can you imagine how we feel now, right? There was no public engagement whatsoever for almost 1.5 years. And then an unreadable document with massive changes was released like a bomb. Both the massive content changes and the lack of public consultation were abnormal, devastatingly poor, disrespectful, and frankly, just unacceptable. Right. So, having said that, now what? I learned that contrary to the expectations mentioned by the council planners in 2021, that NPS-HPL with the LUC3 category land in it was the reason to remove the anticipated rural settlement zones from Plan Change 50. The whole valley floor is bluntly blanket mapped as LUC3 land, And that was apparently seen as a reason to categorize the whole valley floor as highly productive land and to remove the anticipated settlement zones. However, if you look in the NPS HPL, it has several clauses with more than just the one LUT 3 classification criterion to determine what highly productive land is. There are more criteria in those clauses, and those clauses seem to provide options that could have been used by council to retain the settlement zones that they and the community wanted. And I don't understand why they were not used. Why the council didn't fight more for what they themselves and the community wanted. We also saw Labour lose the elections a month after the 23 version release, and we learned that National, through their housing policy, does not support the LUT 3 category in the NPH SPL, and they are going to remove it soon. So what does that mean for Plan Change 50 rural? We hope that the removal of LUT 3 from the NPS HPL takes away the reason to retract the rural settlement zone for Plan Change 50, and that this initiates a way out of this mess. After all, the council and the councillors should still want what was proposed in the 2021 version. And the community supported that version in sharp contrast to what is now in the 2023 version, which is completely different. The housing crisis is still there, the city is still growing rapidly, the need for council to have more houses is still there, and the community support for the 2021 proposals is still there. So now I have two quick questions and a follow-up request.
We're out of time, I'm afraid.
So I can't ask my questions in 1 minute?
Maybe a councillor might ask you a question which might resolve what you want to add. But we have a 30-minute limit for questions. So just before you go on, we need to, in accordance with Standing Order 15.1, extend the time allowed for public submissions.
Okay.
So Councillor Swales is going to propose that and seconded by Councillor Ultra. So that's one part of, are we
I'm
happy?
happy to ask a question.
Thank you, Councillor Swales.
So you alluded that there were a couple of points that you wanted to raise with us, or questions that you wanted to raise. I'd like to actually hear what those questions are.
Okay, so is the council prepared to explore the current NPS HPL clauses that seem to provide options for the council to retain the settlement zones proposed in the 2021 version? And knowing that LUT 3 will be removed from the NPS HPL soon, will the council be prepared to review the PC50 rural, or at least wait until that is clarified and reinstate the rural settlement zones as proposed in the 2021 version?
Through you, Chair. Thank you very much. Are you prepared to, do we have his notes, Lisa?
Yes, would you like to table your documents and then we can,
Councillors.
Sure.
and then we can all have a proper read and distribution?
I only have one document,
Okay.
and that's what I've just told you.
Yeah, please, we would like to have it.
Thank you very much.
And where do I take that?
Hang on, there might be other councillors that might have questions for you.
Any other questions? No, okay.
Thank you.
We do have Mr. Chris Upton wishing to speak to us.
Yeah. Evening,
Funny enough, it might be on the same matter.
could well be. It's, yeah, quite ironic actually coming here and sitting on this side of the table, actually feels quite uncomfortable. But nice to see some familiar faces, so thank you. I guess talking about Plan Change 50, but I guess I'm coming at it from a fairly unique perspective. And I wasn't involved working for Mangaroa Farms as CEO when it initially came out. But from what I've heard and the feedback I've had from the Monaghan family that own the farm, was that the initial process was really really conducive to great communication. And there was wide community support. And I know, brothers took a lot of time to submit on those initial drafts. And, you know, the outcomes, for a particular piece of land, at the farm, was really, really positive and gave us a lot of flexibility. You would have seen, and you'll see soon on the company calendar, somebody ever thought I'd be on, so, that there's been a huge amount of investment, in the farm, and it's continuing. And the vision, for that entire property, which is about 2,500 acres, is substantial. However, I guess the conversations that we had in those early days, led to some, you know, decisions that were made and investments in property. And that all felt really, really good. Actually, boys were really, really positive. There was great communication, good outcomes, and a really positive experience. You don't get that all that often from my experience. However, after that, there was silence. And when I guess there's delays in communication, wrongly, I think probably the feeling was that things were okay, and things were going down the same track. But they simply weren't. When the NPS-HPL landed, that landed in council. Council officers understand that, they have a good knowledge of the impact of that, but people in the community don't at all. And I'm, you know, pretty obvious in that space. I wouldn't have a clue what rates increases have been since I left council. I just don't know. I don't hear about it. I don't see it. That information is just blind to the vast majority of the community. So I am now in that silent minority in the public. So I can see this from a number of angles. I can see the NPS-HPL coming down on council and all of that different legislation from central government, which absolutely wreaked havoc on all of the policy team and the plans and, you know, what all the things that you guys had planned for growth within Upper Hutt. But nobody else knew about that. The only way I found out about NPS-HPL and the likely impact on the Mangaroa Farms land was when I caught up with Pete Kelly for a coffee. And he mentioned about NPS-HPL and soil classification 3. I was only new working at the farm. I didn't have a clue what soil classification 3 was, to be fair. And went back and had a look, and when I look at that, that impacts that whole of Farm 2, all along the ridgeline, all underneath the forestry block, which was going to be rural lifestyle, settlement block, and the opportunities that have created economic hub and a village. All that was gone. And you know, to be fair, when I rang Matthew, who's the older brother, and told him he was away at the time, he was pretty angry, to be fair, given that there'd been so much communication, and then all of a sudden this rug was pretty much pulled out from underneath the organisation, it felt, and the broader community from what you've heard, and there was no communication. I then engaged in, you know, through networks obviously that I've got and dug a little bit deeper, and had a meeting with Helen, which was great. However, we still didn't really get to understand the full extent of it. And we really only got that information when the plan was released on the 4th of October. What was frustrating then was that the submissions were supposed to close on the 3rd of November. So there'd been this plan that was promising, all of a sudden that was pulled out, and then 4 weeks to submit. It was like, what the hell's going on here? However, I get it, right? It's frustrating, really hard. You go into a blanket of doing that work and then pop back out and like the whole world's changed. What we're really asking for is, you know, and ironically, I've been talked with, oh gosh, what's her name? Mary Beth Taylor. And you know, she's even supportive of what's happening in that broader 2021 draft. I never thought her and I would probably agree with some of those things and some of the battles we'd had over the years. All we're asking for is time to pause. From conversations we've had with national government prior to them becoming elected, and now they are the elected government, they will remove soil classification 3. What that does is allows the 2021 draft to come back into play, if that is still council's vision. If the vision has totally changed, then maybe that's a different conversation we need to have. But I think personally there's a way out, either by waiting for soil classification 3 to come out, or by fully investigating actually the means that currently sit within the legislation. Sorry, what my last point is, one of those means is talking about highly productive soil. Highly productive soil has two main facets to it. One is the soil makeup, but one is also your ability to make an economic outcome of it. I can assure you that Mangaroa Farms is not an economically viable business. It's there because of its charitable status and the ability to handle the economic pressure that comes with it. If you look at one of the other things that's in the plan changes is the Burkitt block. You can't blame the Burkitts for trying to make some money out of a piece of land that they would never be able to sell on the open market as a farm. It's not economically viable. So I guess, we want to work with you. We're trying to create a nutritious food hub and education centre out in the valley. It's going really well. There's going to be more publicity coming up soon, and really keen to work with you to kind of get the outcomes that I think would be fantastic for us, but also fantastic for Upper Hutt in general. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Swales?
Thanks, Chris, for coming, and it's nice actually to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So I understand the frustration that the community are feeling, but I mean, it is something that we as elected people feel as well. We had to turn around in a really quick time, fast consenting, which had a few fishhooks in for our officers and for elected people. And we understand, and at the moment we're in a process where the submissions are being brought to us. So we're not, the process that we're in, that we can hear your views, both yours and Mr. Voss's, and we can appreciate you coming along and thanking you for coming along. But it's not really, we're not really in a position where we can kind of engage other than let you know we've heard you, and thank you for coming along and talking to us. It is much appreciated, and we take on board what you've said, and it isn't an easy landscape for us to navigate through. I've decided to slow in the area with our officers, and with the legislative changes that are coming fast and furious, it certainly does leave our heads spinning.
Yeah. No. I totally understand that. It's really just an opportunity to come and highlight what's coming your way.
And it's good to know. Like you said, one of the important things for us to hear is the voice of the community. And you're right, even we as elected people, when we don't hear anything, we think it's okay.
Yeah,
so it's good that you come.
One of my major lessons after leaving council was actually the silence.
Yes.
There's when you're in it 24/7, it's all that you're in, and it's the thing everyone else is. But the reality is 95% of the community ain't. So yeah.
So no, thank you, Chris.
But, yeah.
Yes, councillor Wheeler?
Yes, soil classification 3, is that the major concern?
It is, yeah, and I guess it depends on I guess where that change came from. From what I understand, it was around soil classification 3 because central government said that you have to make all soil classification 3 land rural production, and that's pretty much what's been followed in the draft plan, which meant everything else got thrown out. That was soil classification 3. However, I do believe there are ways which we've had consulting advice on to change that, either by waiting for it to come out or by fighting the fact that it's actually not actual productive land. Otherwise, it'd still be, share milking and everything. The farm that was purchased was in reception. Wouldn't be a farm if it wasn't for the structure of Mangaroa Farm.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. It's great to see you. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the removal of pine trees, Silver Springs Bird Reserve. You've all read the report and heard the comments from the public. Questions?
I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Swales?
I was going to say, when we go through the recommendations that have been put there, A, B, C, D, E, I don't know whether any of our councillors would like them to be taken individually or whether they would like, okay, so I'm then requesting through you, Chair, could we have the recommendations put out one by one, please?
Yes.
Rather than in a collective. Thank you very much. So I then, if no one's got anything to say, you do? Yeah.
I'd just like to ask para 14 about, talks about replanting the area after logging has taken place. What is intended here, because replanting the area is going to be at a cost. And I don't think that's been factored into the long-term plan. And so I just want to know what is going to be the what council officers' views are on that.
Okay, does anyone want to?
From a director, please,
Um,
or CEO?
yeah, through chair, yeah, there is no funding, being made available. And obviously this is something that needs to be considered part of the long-term plan. If we go ahead with it.
So therefore, may I follow-up question, why are we deciding to remove the pine trees when we don't have a follow-up action of what we're going to do once the pine trees are being removed? Why not wait until we have some sort of idea about what we're going to do and the cost of that? To my mind, we're going to get rid of the pine forest, get some money coming in, say 20,000 or whatever, 24,000 or whatever. But then what? It seems to me that we should be addressing this as a complete package rather than just felling the pines. And that brings in about community consultation.
So have you a suggestion to make?
Well, I suggest we actually defer this paper. In fact, because as the longer we defer it, the higher the log price is going to be. Hopefully, one would think. And we defer the paper and direct officers to come back with a long-term plan, which will include the removal of the pine forest trees and its plan for its replacement.
Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Yes, you would.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to defer it, but I'm not sure that seeing them up to come back with. I mean, we know we're working through the long-term plan. Fact of the matter, in the next few years, there will be no money for that. So it's just a matter of deferring it and re-looking at it in future time, actually. Yep. Can I just add to that? If you remove the pine forest, then what's going to happen is going to be secondary growth. And well, either that could be native growth, but it may not be native growth. So who's going to maintain that?
Yep, councillor
And it
Wheeler.
would create, I mean, the pine forest at the moment is a fire hazard. It's just going to be just a fire hazard once the secondary growth comes back.
Councillor Wheeler.
Totally agree with councillor Carson there. You've got plan A, but you haven't actually found out what's going to happen after you. There's no management plan, no nothing like that. I think being a delicate area, I think you need to actually have something in place. And if we defer it longer, plus the contract you've got, to do it $24,000, that's way back in 2022. So I presume, things have changed in the last 2 years, that those prices would be totally different again.
The log price has gone down since then.
So I'm in agreement. I second what councillor Carson said.
Okay, there's a couple of points there that you might want to respond to.
The Oxford report was just an assessment on the approximate value. It wasn't a quote, it wasn't a contract as such. We did pay them to do it, to give us an understanding of the value, I guess, of the profit that was involved in it. Logging is a vicious activity. It's a high priority, high visual area. You can see what's happening in Guildford. And unless there's, it's probably likely that gorse will come back, which is also classed as a good nursery crop for revegetation. But over time, it just won't happen overnight or in a year or two, 10 years, 15 years, provided no fires, hit that area, it should be all right. Slash management is also a bit of an issue. That's going to have to be addressed. And that report from Olsen's never really talked about the different expectations on how slash is managed in the future, especially after the floods that we had in the Downing Street Court. So I expect those. I just don't expect there's going to be a profit to take the trees out. There's going to be certain cost implications, and managing the regrowth of pines is pretty essential. I mean, if you don't do it, they'll just come straight back again. So deferring it, yep, it's an option. Or allocating money to the end plan of funds, and I did talk about some estimates there of what the costs are likely to be. It's not cheap.
Councillor Carey and then Councillor Holderness.
Just a question for the director as well. On, I guess in terms of it's an unmanaged block as far as I'm aware. So there's the assumption, I guess, can we make an assumption that the values in the logs through that, and also what's the risk? Because you go through there's trees just blown all over the place. So, and people still access that as well. So do we carry a risk from that perspective? And then too. So.
Yes, through your chair. Look, the reason this report's come before you was that there was some commercial interest in those trees. But as time goes on, that commercial interest will decline because the block of trees is unmanaged, and the value of the timber that comes out of there is really the lowest value, which is in essence pulpwood. So leaving the trees is not going to increase the value of them, but it's probably going to increase the harvesting cost because they're bigger. In terms of the issues we have at the moment, obviously fire is a risk. And the second issue, which is starting to emerge, is that windthrow is starting to get into that plantation. So we're already starting to see trees on the perimeter of it falling over. And unfortunately, the trees that have fallen over at this stage have not really been that accessible. And so in order to make sure they don't cause any ongoing issues, those trees have been cable tied to existing trees that are planted. One can only imagine that that would continue to occur over time. So yes, there are some risks in leaving it, but the reason that this has come forward, and we understand totally the desire of the community to be involved in terms of what comes next, but it was brought to you because at the time that valuation was undertaken, there was some commercial interest in it, which is probably the best deal you're going to get if you want to take those trees down, either now or in the future.
Okay, Councillor Bentley has a question, and then we'll come to Councillor Wheeler and, Councillor Holderness. All right, we'll go to Councillor Holderness, but we acknowledge that Councillor Bentley is there as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Through you, understanding the risk around the fire, but it looks like the gorse is also just as flammable if that were to come up. and so, it seems a bit, when we're looking at the costs, if I'm reading this right, it looks like there's 140,000 that would be required for the long-term plan for the, annual clearance, plus 140,000 for the plants, plus another 100,000 for the labour costs in terms of replanting. So you're wanting 480,000 from the long-term plan,
A rough
a rough estimate.
A rough estimate.
Yeah, I'm going to be,
Doing other community groups, the labour cost,
yeah,
could reduce considerably.
understood. But without a clear plan in place, I'm also in favour of deferring it for now. Thanks.
Okay, councillor Bentley and then councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree with my colleagues. I agree the pine trees need to go, but unless we have a plan on how we're actually going to replant, it could just become overgrown with gorse very quickly. Instead of just deferring it altogether, can we move another recommendation around officers reporting back with a replanting plan that we can then go off? Because deferring it for who knows how long, I feel like just leaves it up such a unfinished matter. Whereas I think if we get a report back with that planting plan, and hopefully relatively soon, then we can get those trees down because they are a hazard, but then we can have a more concrete plan to deal with the issue.
Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, mine was to Brett over there about what was going to happen after the trees had been knocked down. Was there a management plan put in place, or?
Well, there's no current management plan, so obviously, so this is what we're trying to do it. There has to be a plan going forward of how the land is going to be managed. Which will include, yes, plant control and farming. Yeah. The whole area doesn't necessarily have to be replanted. I mean, there's a lot of gullies and there's quite a bit of native in there already. And the theory is the logging, although it does make a mess, it'll be in those areas that the pines come out, not through the bits that will be regenerated. So it's almost a wait to see until you actually do the work. It's really hard to sit down and prepare a plan. All I'm saying is that in order to do it, there's costs going to be involved. And also I support gorse coming back in certain areas. And it does definitely act as a nurse crop, but I just send that away to go, but there is a risk of that. Yeah.
Okay, your worship, and then councillor Griffiths.
You know, I say we can have all the plans you like, but the reality of it is we've already heard it was just just a bit of replanting and not pest controlling. We're looking at least $400,000. Well, yes, there is no money for that.
Yep, councillor Griffiths. Yeah.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm in the same breath as Councillor Bentley, thinking along the lines of deferring it indefinitely seems a bit pointless, but also spending money on coming back with a paper that's going to cost Kapapa City Council time and staff energy. The costs involved in removing the trees at the moment from the document saying it could be around a cost neutral proposal. Somebody coming in and getting rid of the trees. Most of the work, it's more around the management and the maintenance after the fact. Maybe it be something that the council would entertain to look at the public to be involved in that process, talk about how the process could go forward with groups like Forest and Birds, looking at planting, I don't know what you call it. We have planting days, I suppose, that different companies put forward. Arbor Day, things like this. I mean, like Brett saying, gorse isn't the enemy. You know, pine trees falling down on other people's private property, taking out other pine trees, risk to life, those sort of things are high risk or are risks that we're carrying. Gorse is a one fire risk, same risk as having the tree. If we got the trees down, we've got a paper coming back to us saying about taking the trees down. The costs involved in just going through and cleaning out the wildling pines over the next 10 years. That may be something that another group would volunteer or go out to public, ask them to come back and have an input. We can put it to bed with no money, and hide it for another 5 to 10 years before we have any money to spend on it. That would be my sort of take on it.
Can I just before you do, can I just bring us back to what we've had input from 2 groups who are volunteering to be part of the development of a management plan. So I think rather than getting down to the weeds of the matter, sorry about that, I think let's just, the idea of deferring it until we have had some consultation between the officers and the group of people who are offering to participate, and then let them consider what is the best way of dealing with it, rather than us trying to think around this table on something that really is an operational aspect. So Councillor Griffiths, and then
Do we need to put a time frame on that deferral to come back with a paper just to say that something's happened, or do we just let it go to the weeds?
Well, Madam Chair, you've got a motion on the table. It's been seconded, right? And so Councillor Griffiths can amend that motion if it goes through ahead and putting in a timetable for the report to come back. But there is a motion on the table. And it should be put for debate and then voted on. You called for questions, and the question was on the original paper. And so we're now discussing the motion that's been put on the table.
Can we have a read back of that motion?
Who seconded it?
Councillor Wheeler.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, apologise.
So are we debating and asking questions about the paper, or are we now debating the motion that's been put forward by me and seconded by Councillor Wood?
I think we are actually doing that.
Can I please have the motion read back?
The wording I've got is suggested that recommendations be deferred until officers can come back to council with a long-term land management plan for the area.
And in consultation with the community.
Okay, so Councillor Carey, are you? Do you want Councillor Hammond or Ultra to speak before you? Yeah, while you think about it. Councillor Ultra?
I just wanted to add to that slash management. I want to, just include that in part of the, so there's the planting and weed management, and whether, chipping the slash would be useful in terms of mulching new plantings. So looking into those types of things where you're reusing slash.
I think that would form part of the management plan.
I was making sure that it does.
Yeah. Councillor Carey?
Yeah, I'm unsure if I'm speaking out of turn here, a question, but on that motion, I guess deferring all good and well, and whether this is actually deferred full stop, but I'd like to know what the risk is around, and arguably what the costs are of some of these smaller cleanups that we have to do from felled trees. So example being where it was interrupting the tracks below, like what are those costs in terms of tidy up and how does that accumulate?
And we would hope, I think, that would be part of the management plan that would come back. Are we? Yeah.
No, sorry, through you, Chair, I think.
Oh,
Councillor
sorry.
Carey, do you want to?
No, that to me is, I mean, these are the options if we don't take it, right, or don't do this under deferral, what happens then? I'd also like to know, when does a plantation like this become unmanageable just through maturity? Because what's the life of pine trees in terms of an unmanaged plantation?
Good reason. Some of the trees are, a lot of them, so half the trees are basically self-sown. They're not, they weren't planted as part of the planting. So the plantation planting, they've been planted too close. And and they haven't had room to, I guess, increase significantly the size of timber, so they're never gonna be like, they're gonna be small pole logs. The risk to adjoining landowners is pretty minimal, except for the railway, land, their boundary is way up the hill. The trees that came down are one was a bit of a hollow, and one tree was actually, I think, on their land. But it doesn't, I just don't know whether the trees as a group themselves are a major risk. There's no official walking tracks through there. People do go in there, obviously, but it's not, yeah. I don't think there's many public safety issues about that. Fire is the biggest risk in there, just with the stuff that's underneath.
Look, we do have a motion on the floor. I think we've all had an opportunity.
Can I just add to it through you, Chair? I
Ah,
haven't
you
spoken on
may,
this.
you may.
Thank you very much.
And then that'll be the last one.
Thank you. So with the motion that's on the floor, and looking at all of the financial implications and the LTP plan that we've got, I certainly agree with the motion that's on the floor. My issue is that when I look at the LTP, we review it again in 3 years. After hearing what some of the public people have said to us, the expectation when you go out and public consult, they expect then something is going to happen. And that is a danger that I don't want us to get into. I want us to publicly consult, but when we review the LTP in 3 years' time. So we're talking about deferring, and I like the fact, and I will support that we will defer it. I know that as a responsible landowner, we will, when we're notified, and I do apologise, it took a wee while for us to hear Silverstream Railway, that there was, as the picture had shown, that there was a pine tree that was down, that we braced it, right? That we can still do that mitigation, because that would, I'm assuming, would come under repairs and maintenance under parks, that we'd be able to do that kind of work, which would mitigate some of our risk profile that we've got there, and us being good stewards. So I agree with the motion that's on the floor, but I think that it should be something that we have in 3 years' time, or in the 4th year, when we go to review the LTP, because we already know that wherever we land, when we land the LTP, there is no room in the budget for this. And I just don't want to give an expectation to people in the community that after consultation with them, that we're going to do something when we know, truly know, that we can't do that. So I'd rather start being honest, and let's defer it, and let's be honest about the deferral.
That's all needs to be said.
Thank you.
Good.
And I would support that. So my amendment is that we defer it until the next LTP conversation.
So Councillor Carson or Councillor Wheeler, are one of you going to respond to that?
That amendment.
Yeah, I have. We'll keep it attached for 3 years.
Thank you. And have it noted that it's there and it comes up in the LTP discussions for the next round.
So, if I may, and Chair, involved in all this, of course, is what happens to that Silverstream spur anyway.
Well,
we may change what time, so, you know, there's all that on the mix as well.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Outram?
If we defer, through you, Chair, does that mean that no pines will be being removed over the next 3 years, or can pine trees start to be taken out? It's not a fast job that will be done quickly, so I just think that there may be some part of the job that can be started in terms of removing pine trees.
No, that's not what the motion said.
No, that's not the motion.
Can I just
please do
mention about the long-term plan? In the part of the community consultation, by the time that starts, the LTP will be out, consulted on and decided on, and will be quite clear to the public that there isn't any money in the next 3, 4, 5 years. So I think that concern could be somewhat alleviated. So why don't we just leave it as it is in terms of the motion that I put, which means that at any time it can come back for, or we're left until 3 years' time in LTP. So leaving it to the LTP sort of locks you into not doing anything for 3 years. And I'd rather not that happen, because something might happen that we have to address the issue of the tree. So I'd rather let's leave the motion as is.
Yeah, and okay, councillor Bentley is wanting to say something as well. And then that will be it. We're going to put the motion. Councillor Whelan.
Yeah, so in the meantime, if trees fall down, does council's maintenance budget cover that?
Yeah, obviously,
Is that what was?
yeah.
Well, it's pretty fell down, I mean,
Say on the perimeter and affected Salisbury Railway.
affecting somebody else's property, we would just get in and do what we else can to mitigate that, and we've done that previously with this instance.
Okay.
So, yeah, you've got fire, I suppose, and when it happens, and yeah, we can do that within our, budget. But if a tree fell down in the middle of the forest, we probably wouldn't do anything about it. Yeah.
Okay, councillor Bentley, and then that's it. We're putting it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify recommendation D. Allocate sufficient funds in the LTP for annual clearance. What was the definition of sufficient funds? I know we've got some narrative further down in the paper around costings, but what was actually going to be in the LTP if that did pass?
For you, Chair, it would be approximately $40,000 per year for a 10-year period.
Why don't we just get on with it then, guys? I don't
Well,
know.
you would have got approval from me for that, because that's 400 over 10 years. Would you have tried on the long-term plan?
Thank you. We're going to put the motion. Could we once more, sorry, can we just repeat it and then we're going to vote?
So that council defers any action on that agreements reserve until the next review of the long-term.
No, that was councillor Swales.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the one before.
So defers any action on the Silver Stream Spur Reserve and come back to council, and asks officers to come back to council with a long-term land management plan for the Silver Stream Spur Reserve in consultation with the community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I speak to that? I can't support that, because that's exactly what councillor Swale said. That's giving false expectations. When you go to the community and you're wanting to, when you start going to the community, there's an expectation that something's going to happen.
Yeah.
I can support that we defer it,
Yeah. Me too.
but that's it, because once you start there, there's an expectation that something's going to happen.
Well, let's put the motion as it stands and see where we vote.
We've got a mover and a seconder.
Seconder. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against?
No.
No.
So, yep, it is lost.
So can we?
Have mine?
Quick, can
Yeah,
I? Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Can we put an unfunded activity in the LTP at this point for that,
Too late.
for the out years or anything like that?
Well, that raises an expectation.
It's unfunded, but it's on the books, I don't know, or just, all right.
Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendations as they stand.
No.
No, councillor Swales put forward a recommendation.
Recommendation. So if you'd like to read it out.
So the amended version that councillor Swales proposed was that council defers any action on the Silver Stream Spur Reserve for 3 years until the next review of the long-term plan, and asks officers to come back to council with a long-term land management plan for the Silver Stream Spur Reserve in consultation with the community.
Thank you. I so move.
I'll second.
Thank you, councillor Holness.
That's again giving a false expectation. I thought we were just going to talk about defer.
defer till the next LTP. Doesn't mean to say we're going to do it, but it's deferring it to.
But we're going to commit, under that, aren't we going to consult with the community?
Yeah, and the LTP that goes out after this one that we're doing. So and
Oh, well, I think we need to say that that consultation won't take place. Because otherwise there'll be people expecting the consultation to take place tomorrow.
no, in the next LTP, not this one.
As long
And
as
the
it's clear.
ones-
As long as
yeah.
it's clear.
So we'll put the date in there, which is not the 24, but the 27, 37.
27.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that motion's on.
Yes.
Who is seconding it? Councillor Holderness. We've had all the discussion. We've had enough. All those in favour of this amendment?
Aye.
I suppose so.
Against? No.
No. Division.
We have hands up.
7-2, I think.
So those
Four.
against? No, and I want my vote recorded.
Likewise, please.
And councillor Bentley as well. Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to our next item. Director's report, planning and regulatory services.
Chair, could I just provide an update? As I signalled, there was an update in my report.
Yeah, please do, please do.
Just in relation to, from para 13, so that in the context there is around our review, I signalled that I'd provide an update, and specifically that's in relation to submission that was made by officers recently. So again, para 13, and in relation to the parts of the RM reform program that are set out at 13B of my report, I just wanted to confirm back to the committee that officers did make that submission. We submitted that feedback rather. So NFE engaged with the local government sector at quite a pace on the second part of their RM reform, and we provided that feedback on Sunday, the 7th of Feb, and indicative of the pace at which government is moving. They then asked us some follow-up questions on Monday the 8th and sought that officers provide that feedback not later than the 9th, which we did provide that on the 8th. So just wanted to provide an update on that point. Chair, if that's okay, I'll just update on a couple of other things as well.
Before you move on, can I run through you, Chair?
Councillor Swales.
So what were the questions that they came back to for us?
They came back, so as an overarching comment, that feedback that we provided was essentially expressing many of the points that this council has expressed for previous council submissions, and that's in relation to concerns around
recovery.
Yeah, and certainly in terms of practical matters around implementation. Probably the key point there, though, was a complete lack of consideration of cost recovery for the local government sector, which naturally was of concern. So that was a very centralised point in the officers' feedback. They asked some questions about that for officers to expand on those points, and we simply just explained how that would play out in reality.
Right.
So the other points I wanted to update on, Chair, just again staying in RM reform for a moment. I just wanted to comment on obviously the national policy statement on highly productive land. That's just something that was obviously raised this evening. I just wanted to make a point because it's something that we've been dealing with at an operational level. In relation to some feedback that we have had on Plan Change 50, I just wanted to note that the comment has been made through tonight and elsewhere as well around the inevitability of that particular national directions changing. I just wanted to note that the work that the team have done to date, they're very busy monitoring what has been signalled by the government as distinct from electioneering points. And I just wanted to point out that particular land use class 3 soil issue was something that was a pre-election campaign matter of the National Party, but it hasn't yet made its way through anything that's been signalled as an RM reform priority, nor has it come through in the coalition agreements. That said, look, it absolutely may appear, and so to that point, I just wanted to allay any concerns of the committee. Obviously, if that national direction changes, to whatever it may change, obviously we would need to comply with that. And then the final sort of update point I just wanted to make, Chair, was in relation to from paragraph 9. This is in relation to the Regional Council's planning policy program, specifically the Natural Resources Plan Change 1. I just wanted to point out in relation to para 10 that the summary of submissions has now been published. Officers have reviewed the way both our submission was captured, and I confirm it was accurately reflected. We have historically had issues there. Officers in the team have also looked at obviously the range of other submissions, and ultimately, and I appreciate it's not here as a recommendation in this report, but the team's really busy. We need to prioritise our resources. We're happy, officers are happy with the scope of submission, and we've got enough room to move and operate in scope on that particular matter. And we're not proposing to make a further submission on that particular regional council plan matter, and obviously happy to discuss them.
Councillor Swales has a question related to that.
Thank you. So how many submissions were put in under that, do we know? And under the review that our officers did we have support from other TAs or entities about some of the major concerns that we had around that?
Through you, Chair, I know that one of the team is online, so I may get an answer to the first question, which was how many submissions. I don't know that.
Okay.
I can probably report back tonight.
Yeah.
And yes, we did have more support for the points that were raised in this council submission.
And my third question through you, Chair, is when I'm assuming there's going to be some oral hearings around that, and that we will be present to articulate. We've said that's what we want to do.
Yeah, through you, Chair. That's what the submission says. And in terms of that prioritisation of resource, that's still it's still a priority of the team. It's my point tonight around recommending that we don't participate in making further submissions is simply that we have enough scope to participate fully as intended through that process.
Through that first initial one, and I'll get that, so I'm happy with that.
Okay, any questions? Comments? No? All right, shall we receive the report? Councillor Hammond, Councillor Swales. All those in favour say aye. Aye.
Chair, just as a PS, it was 280 submissions. The team reached up that.
Thank you. 280 submissions.
Correct. Thanks, Chair.
All right, Director's Report, Strategy, Partnerships and Growth. Anything the Director would like to add?
Through you, Chair, nothing particular other than the comment at the start of the report, just noting a slight change in scope for future reporting, what's reported to the committee, just to align better with the terms of reference of the tourism committees.
So, Councillor Swales.
I was really pleased to read that because I don't sit on that city services committee.
No.
So thank you very, very much for the director. Thank you.
So any questions about this report? Any? No? No? In that case, let's put recommendation 2 that we receive it. All those in favour, Councillor Swales?
Aye.
Vote. Okay, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, no, it's carried. Okay, our next one is Chief Executive's report. Is there anything the Chief Executive would like to add?
Thank you, Chair. Not really, just today, in fact, a few minutes ago, just an update on item 9, or point 9. It seems as though NIWA are now forecasting that there could be approximately 5 weeks of hot, dry weather ahead. And so they're now saying that the probability of moving to level 4 for water restrictions is now around about 40%. So the chances of that have gone up slightly from what they have been in the last couple of weeks. On a positive note, Upper Hutt's water consumption, despite population growth and all the leaks, is currently about nearly 0.5% lower than it was same time last year. So the people of Upper Hutt are making genuine efforts to get through this.
Excellent.
It's going to rain on Sunday, so they got that wrong.
So what does the meat office say? Oh, sorry, anyways.
Chair.
Sorry.
Just a question.
Yeah, councillor Carey.
Might be commercial confidence, we discussed it elsewhere, but to echo councillor Carson's statement, are we not?
We are
working
we are
through
online.
Services there?
Yeah, we're online, so just.
Yeah, no, and tell me if it's not an answer here, but is our contract provider not the Met service for weather, or what's the?
We need to contract in, do we?
No, through your chair, I must confess I do tend to use the Met service free to air forecasting facility, but in terms of the Three Waters issues, I understand there is a contractual arrangement between Wellington Water and Moonlight for long-term forecasting. Mr. Premier, just in relation to the chief executive's report, it is intended that there would be, when an opportunity arises, I'd like the opportunity to discuss with councillors what they would like to see in this report going forward. And I guess an example of that is the schedule of meetings that appears on item 13. And without any context, all that is almost a meaningless list. So going forward, once we've had a chance to have a discussion around what you'd like to see, we can improve the quality and the content of what we're delivering to you.
I'll get a chance, opportunity to get it right under, we can go through. Next week.
Excellent. Yep. Okay, so let's, sorry, councillor Swales.
Thank you through you, Chair. I just want to congratulate the staff under some really trying times, how they pulled together the report and all the information for the minister. I've seen the USB stick and I've printed off some of the stuff, and it's really quite impressive, all of the attachments that they did. So I'd just like to acknowledge the work and thank them for it. And it certainly supported our position of investment in the water over the past 10 years, which is not, and I hope the public get to actually read some of that actually our officers and elected members have been investing, and there have been underspends in OPEX and CAPEX. So I just want to say thank you very much.
Councillor Hammond.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Swales, because that's almost exactly what I was going to say. And is there a chance that we could actually release our answer to the minister through the public?
Through you, Chair, now that this report is before the committee, in effect, that information is available.
So it's a good resource for us to use when we're talking to the public. Yeah, thank you. Okay, all those in favour of receiving the report? Is there a mover? Councillor Hammond, seconded by Councillor Ultra. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, so so we will thank our online participants, and we will move into non-public business.